A practice that is laying the foundation of a vast amount of disease and of even more serious evils is the free use of poisonous drugs. When attacked by disease, many will not take the trouble to search out the cause of their illness. Their chief anxiety is to rid themselves of pain and inconvenience. So, they resort to patent nostrums, of whose real properties they know little, or they apply to a physician for some remedy to counteract the result of their misdoing, but with no thought of making a change in their unhealthful habits. If immediate benefit is not realized, another medicine is tried, and then another. Thus, evil continues. The sick are in a hurry to get well, and the friends of the sick are impatient. They will have medicine, and if they do not feel that powerful influence upon their systems, their erroneous views lead them to think they should feel. They patiently change for another physician. The change often increases the evil. They go through a course of medicine equally as dangerous as the first. By the use of poisonous drugs, many bring upon themselves lifelong illness, and many lives are lost that might be saved by the use of natural methods of healing. The poisons contained in many so-called remedies create habits and appetites that mean ruin to both soul and body. Many of the popular nostrums called patient medicines and even some of the drugs dispensed by the physicians act a part in laying the foundation of liquor habits, the opium habit, the morphine habit that are so terrible a curse to society. Drugs given to stupefy, whatever they may be, derange the nervous system. God has formed laws which govern our constitutions, and these laws which He has placed in our being are divine, and for every transgression there is a fixed penalty, which must sooner or later be realized. The majority of diseases which the human family have been and still are suffering under, they are created by ignorance of their own organic laws. They seem indifferent in regard to the matter of health, and work perseveringly to tear themselves to pieces, and were broken down and debilitated in body and mind, sent for the doctor and drug themselves to death. Thousands who are inflicted might recover their health if instead of depending upon the drugstore for their life, they would discard all drugs and live simply without using tea, coffee, liquor, or spices, which irritate the stomach and leave it weak, unable to digest even simple food without stimulation. The Lord is willing to let His light shine forth in clear distinct rays to all who are weak and feeble. To use drugs while continuing evil habits is certainly inconsistent and greatly dishonors God by dishonoring the body which He has made. Yet, for all these, stimulants and drugs continue to be prescribed and freely used by human beings, while the hurtful indulgences that produce the disease are not discarded. Those who will gratify their appetites and then suffer because of their intemperance and take drugs to relieve them may be assured that God will never interpose to save health and life which are so recklessly carried. The cause has produced the effect. Many, as their last resort, follow the directions in the Word of God and request the prayers of the elders of the church for their restoration to health. God does not see fit to answer prayers offered in behalf of such, for he knows that if they should be restored to health, they would again sacrifice it upon the altar of unhealthful appetites. If those who take these drugs were alone the sufferers, then the evil would not be as great. But parents not only sin against themselves in swallowing drug poisons, but they sin against their children. The vitiated state of their blood, the poison distributed throughout the system, the broken constitution, and various drug disease as the result of drug poisons are transmitted to their offspring and left them as a wretched inheritance, which is another great cause of the degeneracy of the race. Make use of the remedies that God has provided. Pure air, sunshine, and intelligent use of water are beneficial agents in the restoration of health, but the use of water is considered too laborious. It is easier to employ drugs than to use natural remedies. Many parents substitute drugs for judicious nursing. Drug medication, as it is generally practiced, is a curse. Educate away from drugs. Use them less and less, and depend more upon hygienic agencies. Then nature will respond to God's physicians: pure air, pure water, proper exercise, a clear conscience. Those who persist in the use of tea, coffee, and flesh meats will feel the need of drugs. But many might recover without one grain of medicine if they would obey the laws of health. Drugs need seldom be used. The only hope of better things is in the education of the people in right principles. Let physicians teach the people that restorative power is not in drugs, but in nature. Disease is an effort of nature to free the system from conditions that result from the violations of the laws of health. In the case of sickness, the cause should be ascertained, unhealthful conditions should be changed, wrong habits corrected. Then nature is to be assisted in her effort to expel impurities and to re-establish right conditions in the system. The first labors of a physician should be to educate the sick and suffering in the very cause they should pursue to prevent disease. The greatest good can be done by our trying to enlighten the minds of all we can obtain access to as to the best cause for them to pursue to prevent sickness and suffering and broken constitutions and premature death. But those who do not care to undertake the work that taxes their physical and mental powers will be ready to prescribe drug medication, which lays a foundation in the human organism for a twofold greater evil than that which they claim to have relieved. People need to be taught that drugs do not cure disease. It is true that they sometimes afford present relief, and the patient appears to recover as the result of their use. This is because nature has sufficient vital force to expel the poison and to correct the conditions that cause the disease. Health is recovered in spite of the drug, but in most cases, the drug only changes the form and location of the disease. Often, the effect of the poison seems to be overcome for a time, but the results remain in the system and work great harm at some later period. A physician who has the moral courage to imperil his reputation in enlightening the understanding by plain facts, in showing the nature of disease and how to prevent it, and the dangerous practice of resorting to drugs will have an uphill business, but he will live and let live. He will, if a reformer, talk plainly in regard to the false appetites and ruinous self-indulgence in dressing, in eating and drinking, in overtaxing to do a large amount of work in a given time, which has a ruinous influence upon the temper, the physical and mental powers. Right and correct habits, intelligently and perseverantly practiced, will be removing the cause for disease, and the strong drugs need not be resorted to. There is now positive need, even with physicians, reformers, in the line of treatment of disease, that greater painstaking effort be made to carry forward and upward the work for themselves, and to interestedly instruct those who look to them for medical skill to ascertain the cause of their infirmities. They should call their attention in a special manner the laws which God has established, which cannot be violated with impunity. They dwell much on the working of disease, but do not as a general rule arouse their attention to the laws which must be sacredly and intelligently obeyed to prevent disease. God's servants should not administer medicines which they know will leave behind injurious effects upon the system, even if they do relieve present suffering. Every poisonous preparations in the vegetable and mineral kingdoms taken into the system will leave its wretched influence, affecting the liver and lungs, and deranging the system generally. In their practice, the physicians should seek more and more to lessen the use of drugs instead of increasing it. When Dr. A came to the health retreat, she laid aside her knowledge and practice of hygiene and administered a little homeopathic doses for almost every ailment. This was against the light God has given. Thus, our people who have been taught to avoid drugs in almost every form were receiving a different education. Many might recover without one grain of medicine if they would leave out the laws of health. Drugs need seldom be used. It will require earnest, patient, protracted effort to establish the work and to carry it forward upon hygienic principles. But let fervent prayer and faith be combined with your efforts, and you will succeed. By this work, you will be teaching the patient and others also how to take care of themselves when sick, without resorting to the use of drugs. These are few statements of Ellen G. White on the position of drugs, disease, and prevention. I hope you are blessed. Beloved, I wish above all things that thou mayest prosper and be in health, even as thy soul prospereth.